Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mormonish. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Landon.
Even though you probably can't recognize us, right? Because we're so in disguise. And we have a very recognizable face with us again. We have the amazing Lila Tueller. How are you, Lila?
Hi, I'm good. I'm good. What do you think I am tonight?
That's right.
Tough.
Lila is a cat.
Yes.
I
was going to say, it's not a
am.
real recognizable face when she's dressed as a cat.
I'm a little bit
But she looks
disguised.
great. Meow.
Yeah. Exactly right. And I, of course, am dressed as a witch in my favorite witch hat that I've had since 1991. I was telling these guys I bought this hat to go on a date with my home teacher up Bridal Veil Falls, 1991. And so I'm wearing my witch hat. I have my Halloween makeup on, which you probably can't really tell the difference between that and my real makeup, but I have this. So that's what makes it the Halloween makeup.
Is that a
You were
vampire
supposed to put
kiss?
it
What
on
is
your
that?
chin and make it stick out.
That's
Be a
right.
witch.
Something.
You're the pretty witch. You're a pretty witch.
That's right. And
Always.
Landon, of course, is just some kind of steampunk crazy character. And I have to ask you, can you read the slides through those sunglasses?
I can't see anything.
So it's not like Joseph Smith's giant spectacles that he could, put on and be able to translate. It's not happening.
That's right. I could look into my hat though and translate that way with them. So
Well,
You
know what's
put
funny?
those giant spectacles on the hat. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the ones on your hat,
those are the goggles.
Those look like the Joseph Smith ones that we've seen in that.
Yep.
You've all seen that picture where you're just like, oh,
It's the
come on.
Urim
He's got
thumb.
the breastplate and he's got the weird spectacles. And yeah. We'll just say you're dressed as Joseph Smith.
Joseph Smith. You didn't even try.
I'll
You're dressed
switch
up
your
with the
map
Urim and
here at
thumbs
some
on your
point
head.
because I can't read.
Yeah. Take your glasses out, so. All right. Well, we are dressed this way because we are kicking off the Halloween season. It is getting close. It's only about a week and a half, but it's getting closer and closer. So we're excited. It's my favorite time of year, a lot of people's favorite time of year. And so we're going to actually do a couple Halloween type episodes. So you'll have to look forward to that. But this one is an episode in which we are going to explore the question, Landon, if you want to put the slides up, can Mormons celebrate Halloween? It sounds like a pretty simple question, but there's some nuance to it. And no better person than Lila, who has raised, many kids and grandkids through the decades, like me, doing Halloween. You too, Landon, right? Between us, we have 25 kids, and probably not that many, but we've done the Mormon Halloween thing. And so I think we're experts. I would say we're Halloween experts. So we are going to talk about Mormons and Halloween and church statements about Halloween and sort of the nuance of celebrating Halloween as a Mormon. All right, let's go. What, Lila?
Oh, I said exciting. I'm excited.
It is. So I grabbed an article because I was just doing some research. Can Mormons celebrate Halloween? And I hope these bats aren't too distracting to everybody. I can kind of see them out of the corner of my eye. And I'm like,
you've always driven everyone
go
batty.
That way.
Yeah, everyone knew you were batty to start with. So
thank you, Landon. I appreciate that. That's true. Anyway, this article says what the church has actually said about Halloween, and this was in LDS Living back a couple years ago. So, because the church has come out and made some statements about Halloween and around Halloween. So, we'll kind of go through some of these. So, the article starts out by saying Halloween, that confusing mix of eeriness, morbidity, candy, trick-or-treating, and family fun. Always during this time of year, a strange thing happens among our readers. Suddenly, LDS Living, this is a church magazine, becomes bombarded with comments obsessing over this holiday. But the views expressed in these comments are so contrary, it's confusing. And this is their LDS readership. Some readers request more Halloween content, while others fixate on the holiday's pagan origins, saying that Latter-day Saints should not celebrate such a day. And so I think that's the question right there. And I've run into both kinds of people. I've run into people, in all my years in neighborhoods and with friends that embrace and love and do Halloween to death. And then others that try to keep it low key because they're worried about the occult nature or perhaps the pagan origins. What do you think, Lila? Have you run into both kinds of people?
Yeah, definitely. I think the last neighborhood I lived in, which was very TBM, there was only one house on the street that wasn't LDS, and they did it up big. Everybody really went over the top. We had one neighbor that had a witch riding a bike up on a tall, I don't know what you call that, but it was a pole, and it took the witch was way up, maybe 50 feet in the sky, on and it was pedaling a bike, and it was all flowing in the wind and everything. And then they went all out on all the decorations, and they dressed up to answer the door in some scary scene with music, and they gave out the big, jumbo candy bars. They loved Halloween. And so everyone else tried to compete with them. So it was always a big deal in my neighborhood. But
Wow.
I did have some families where they didn't believe in Halloween and they thought it was evil.
Yep.
And they wouldn't allow their kids to even dress up. So, and I felt sorry for them, the kids.
Exactly. Yep. That describes my neighborhood too. There were those couple families where they're just like, as for me and my house, we do not trick or treat. And I just always felt really sorry for the kids. What about you, Landon? What were your neighborhoods like growing up? Primarily Mormon neighborhood. And
pretty standard. I really didn't know any people who didn't celebrate Halloween. It was more the church limiting what you could do when you did celebrate Halloween. But it's kind of funny because if you don't celebrate Halloween because of its pagan origins, then you really can't celebrate Christmas because it started under pagan origins as well.
And Easter. And Easter. Yeah. If you start cutting yourself out because of pagan origins, there's really nothing you can celebrate. But a lot of people may not realize that.
I didn't know that about Easter. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm telling you, you pick and choose. There it is. All right, let's go to our next slide here. I had a lot of fun with AI on this one, I have to tell you. So this kind of talks about the church's official statement on Halloween. Is there one? Lila, do you want to read this from the article?
Okay. LDS Church official statements. Turns out, not much. In the church's handbook, it states that decorations for ward parties or holiday celebrations should be approved by the stake president and cannot be used in the chapel or on the exterior of the building. These restrictions only broadly, not specifically, address Halloween and focus on how the holiday can be celebrated at a branch, ward, or stake level, not for individual members.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you said, Landon, that they don't really reach out into your neighborhood or family and say, you can't do this. But if you're going to go to the church, that's different, and I can think of wards where we had Halloween parties actually called Halloween. And then other wards where they said this is an autumn festival, they weren't going to go there. So do you notice that, Lila? It kind of, it's roulette. It's Halloween roulette.
You never know. Yeah. It all depends on the bishop and, and the local people that are in the leadership, what their feelings are. It's very roulette-like.
Yep, it is. Have you been to both kind of parties, Landon? Some all out Halloween and some let's just, have some pumpkin soup and call it good.
Yeah, we've had some really good ward Halloween parties that were a lot of fun. Trunk or treat seemed to be kind of the big thing, at least when my kids were. When I was a kid, we never did trunk or treat, but I grew up in Utah, so everybody in your entire neighborhood was LDS, so you just went to everybody's door. But when I lived outside of Utah, the trunk or treat and coming to the church was a big deal. Sometimes you just pulled up and decorated your car, passed out, and everybody left. And other times you had a big party inside the cultural hall.
Like a chili cook-off. Yeah, we're going to talk about the differences with Halloween inside of Utah and outside of Utah, because I've experienced both, and I think probably you guys have too. So, okay, let's go to our next slide. So there is something in the church handbook, section 38.6.12. Do other religions have handbooks like this? I just don't feel that they do.
No.
38.6.12, that's right. And this is sort of related to Halloween. Sometimes this comes up on a lot of different articles and posts that I read about Halloween. And this talks about the occult. Landon, do you want to read what the handbook says about the occult?
Yeah, I'd love to. The occult focuses on darkness and leads to deception. It destroys faith in Christ. The occult includes Satan worship. It also includes mystical activities that are not in harmony with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Such activities include, but are not limited to, fortune-telling, curses, and healing practices that are imitations of the priesthood power of God. Church members should not engage in any form of Satan worship or participate in any way with the occult. they should not focus on such darkness in conversations or in church meetings.
Yeah, so that's kind of a, just general statement. And of course, we have two pictures here. One picture is somebody predicting the future and calling on spirits to tell them what the future is. And the other one is a medieval wizard. Ba-dum-bum.
Yeah, same.
Exactly. I just think that's so funny. Don't you think that's funny, Lila, that there it says, fortune telling, healing practices? I mean, isn't that kind of describing? But then they bring it back and say, not without the power of God, right?
Right. Yeah, but what would you call a patriarchal blessing? It's kind of like a fortune telling thing. You're telling them what's going to happen in their life, roughly, and it's but it's okay because it's a priesthood ordinance, right? Exactly. And this other thing is satanic.
Yep, and that's the difference. So, yep.
They save it by saying imitation of the priesthood, like, we do the real stuff. We really heal people. We really predict the future, not like those fortune teller occultists. But this really presents a problem for the church, since we know that Joseph Smith was heavily involved in the occult. Many of those things that he used in his treasure digging came straight out of the Magus, which is a magic spell book that was written back in the 1700s. And he practiced all kinds of black arts and black magic. So, in fact, they make the complete opposite in Rough Stone Rolling. Richard Bushman says that these occult practices were preparatory for receiving the priesthood. Now we say, oh no, they're imitations of the priesthood. So they can't seem to make up their mind whether it's preparing you for the priesthood or whether it's an imitation of the priesthood.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think you mentioned on another podcast that when you read the words, all of these occult practices were preparatory priesthood, you just went, oh, come on. And this is as a faithful Mormon, and you just shut that book and said, okay, now you've gone too far, and that's kind of why I even wanted to do this podcast about Halloween, because it is so ironic. The faithful Mormons who have a problem with it or are concerned about the occult nature, if you really understood the origins of your own church, I mean, it is just steeped in all of that, so heavily borrowing from that.
We did a podcast a year ago, right? It was a year ago that we did the one on Joseph Smith and the occult,
the magical worldview.
Yeah. So if you want to find out what we're talking about, go back and watch that podcast, because I'll
link it in the show notes.
Really gives a good lead up into all the occult practices that Joseph Smith was into.
It does. So that's kind of the irony of the entire podcast, is that, it just, it's just so steeped in it. So, all right, let's go to our next slide here. Okay, I'm going to tell this story really quick. Isn't that cute? I'm telling you, I love AI. I call this Halloween Pearls Before Swine, Rebecca's story. So, because I think this is a great story and a great example. I know for those of you that are listening, it's a pig wearing pearls with a little pumpkin hat. It's like the cutest thing in the world. So we'll have to stay on this slide. But when I had been married probably about 5 years or so, and our family was so into theater, I was running theater programs and writing scripts and parody songs and music and all this kind of stuff. And we were in a ward, roulette, that loved that kind of stuff. And so we introduced the idea of a giant Halloween lip sync extravaganza, where every single auxiliary would come prepared with some kind of huge lip sync, something. The Relief Society had to do one. Each presidency had to do something, and individual board members and families, dress up like the Brady Bunch, do the, and it was this great plan to get every single auxiliary involved. And then there was food, and, there were MCs, and I wrote parody songs, and we had music, and we had a DJ. It was just huge. And it got bigger and bigger. We did it for about 6 years. I mean, there were hundreds of people. People would bring their relatives to see this, and we would start working on it probably like beginning of August. And it was just so fun to see everybody coming together, because every auxiliary was working on this all together, the big show. And it was so fun. And we moved away from that ward, and we were really sad to leave it. Believe it or not, the ward kept doing it. They actually invited us back like 12 years later, and they were still having this. I mean, it was amazing. That's what I'm telling you, is it was just incredible and just so bonding. You could tell that the ward was just functioning on this great level where they were all bonded together. And so we moved to our new area, which is, this area was in Provo, so a little more outlier. We moved to more of the heart of the heart of the heart of Utah County, as I've discussed. You probably can guess kind of where I'm talking about. So we go to our new ward and we go into the bishop and we say, hey, we're theater people. We have this great idea. You know, right away he's nervous. Yeah. Like, no, I didn't say carnies. I said, we're theater people. Okay. So we said, trust us. We have this amazing idea for an activity. We will put this all together. We will contact all the auxiliaries. It's a big, you know, chili feed and lip sync families and auxiliaries. Everybody's going to get involved. They were skeptical, but they let us do it. And it was so fun. I mean, just the very same thing started happening, the same magic of everybody coming together. We had a family that had 3 boys and 3 girls. They did do the Brady Bunch. They dressed up in the track suits and they sang this. I mean, just so fun, the creativity of on every level in the ward. And hundreds of people attended, to the point where the bishop came up to us on the night and he goes, well, we're out of food. What are we supposed to do now? And I said, well, that's probably a good thing. Have you ever had this many people at an activity? Well, no. And we don't know what to do. I'm like, well, this is a good problem. Send somebody out to Safeway, you know? Anyway, it was a wild success and people bore their testimonies about it. I'm not kidding. Through the new year, talking about just what they felt was, you know, friendship and bonding and wards coming together like the good old days, right? We all remember that, how that used to be back in the 80s and 90s, the heyday, you know? And so we thought, oh, great, we are starting this tradition again. And we had seen how successful it was and the momentum each year, people looking forward to it. And so it got to be the middle of the summer and we went into the bishop and we're like, okay, that was so fun last year and we're ready to do it again, right? And he said, you know, I talked to the stake president and he just says the overtones of the occult. In some of that, you had some dancing mummies and we know that you had a skeleton and some of the people were dressed up as witches. Those overtones of the occult, we are not going to do it again. And they never did it again, even though it was the biggest, you know, and I'm not even trying to toot like my own horn. I'm trying to say that people can come together in activities like this, and you can really feel like a ward family. But because this stake president was so fearful of anything that seemed like the occult, you know, little kids dressed up like mummies, it was the cutest lip sync you've ever seen. You know, they did the monster. No, that's the occult, right? And so they never had it again. And they never did anything again like that. And in all my years in the ward, they never had anything that even closely approached that level of everybody getting involved. So they were fearful. And then it's so funny if you go to the next slide. So stake dances, my husband used to DJ the stake dances and I would help. And this same stake president, we were DJing the stake dance and we were playing the song Thriller, right? I mean, this is still a huge hit. You play this today. I mean, all of us are of an age where we remember when that came out, right? Thriller. Yeah. It was amazing. Yeah. So we're playing this. Here it is, what, 30 years later, 40 years later after it first came out, longer than that, I think. The stake president who was there chaperoning the dance jumped over the DJ table and said, shut that off. Shut that off. That is the occult. You shut that off. And all the kids were out there, you know, I mean, you know, again, friendship, camaraderie, having a wonderful time. We had to shut it off. We had to stop the song.
Boo.
Boo. I'm just telling you that, you know.
Buzzkill.
Exactly. But again, that is a roulette situation. This was this one particular person who was terrified for whatever reason of doing something that might resemble, like that statement 38.6.12, you know, the occult. But I just show those examples, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners have examples the other way where somebody got it, you know, and let people celebrate. Yeah. And then this, where they just shut things down, being so afraid of the occult. So those are my 2 experiences that come to mind that, you know, were really sad because people missed out on community, friendship, fun, just because somebody had this, they read into it what wasn't there. You know, kids dancing to Thriller is not Satan worship. It's not.
No. No.
So I don't know. Do either of you have any experiences where, you know, you were just having some good old, plain old Halloween fun and somebody misread it, or?
Me? Or Landon?
Either of you.
Go, Landon.
I was just going to say that isn't Satan in the temple video, and don't you go to the temple to worship? So, having a
Bingo.
dance, a Halloween dance, and thriller
Yeah.
song seems pretty minor to that. But
Yeah.
no, I didn't go to a lot of Halloween. I usually ended up being out of town most of the time. So it's just been the last few years that I've really gotten into Halloween because I've actually been around and been able to dress up and do fun things.
And that's ironic because your kids are grown. So, like, what are you doing
Yeah,
on your
yeah.
own, getting into Halloween land?
I know, and I'll be gone again on Halloween. So,
Oh no.
Well, consider this your Halloween
That's right.
dress up.
that's
party.
right. I have to do
That's
this
right.
now.
I mean, I feel like
Yes.
you've been in a lot of wards and a lot of neighborhoods, Lila. I mean, you probably saw both sides of it, right? Bishops that were like, this is great, community, and others that were like, oh, so.
Oh yeah, definitely. I never really there were the bishops that, we would do the trunk or treat thing, which
Yeah.
my kids hated, and I was not a supporter of it. I was like, what's wrong with people? This is this is a nationwide celebration. Let's go out and have fun. Stop worrying so much about all that. We're not doing it in a satanic way. We're not worshiping Satan, but they had their fears, and so there were those guys, and then we had the fun ones, so I did have both. I remember where they would say, you can't wear costumes with a mask in the church.
Yeah.
So you have to ruin your costume by taking off your mask.
Yeah.
It depended. We had a really great time in this last ward that I told you about. We had a spook alley set up inside the church that the young men would do. And I mean, it was spooky. The kids, it was scary. It was dark in there, and there was creepy things you had to touch and crawl through. And then we had games in the cultural hall, lots of little, bobbing for apples or fishing, we throw the line over and get a toy or whatever, and decorate donuts or Halloween cookies, or, we just had a big celebration that the primary would, or the young men and women would put it on, but
the primary. Yep.
Yeah.
No, and that's interesting you bring up. No, there definitely are rules for that. No cross-dressing. That's one of the rules at a church party, and also no masks and things like that. So, I mean, sometimes costumes are so good. I had a family member that came with me to a party and dressed up so good, like a hippie, that the bishop was all over him. Didn't even recognize him, right? And was like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "It's a costume, man. It's just a costume." Some people do Halloween better. Some people are more comfortable with Halloween. Let's say that. So. Yeah. All right, let's go to our next slide here, and let's read a little bit about what have church leaders actually said. We do have what we just read in the handbook, but we've also had some other leaders that kind of weighed in. Do you want to read this warning, Lila, from Boyd K. Packer?
Oh, of course, it's Boyd K. Packer. It says, "A warning, there is a dark side to spiritual things. In a moment of curiosity or reckless bravado, some teenagers have been tempted to toy with Satan worship. Don't you ever do that. Don't associate with those who do. You have no idea of the danger. Leave it alone. And there are other foolish games and activities that are on that dark side. Leave them alone." I can hear him saying that.
You're kind of reading it in his tone of voice. And I feel like when he says other foolish games and activities, he's again talking about masturbation, probably linking it with Satan worship. So.
It always comes back to masturbation with Boyd K. Packer. He's got a little obsession with the little factory.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that later. I feel like this statement might have been made around the time of the satanic panic, which was in the 80s. Remember, everybody thought everybody was a devil worshiper and all this was going on. So, there were warnings about that. And I think that impacted Halloween and just how people look at it, because they thought everybody and their dog was a Satan worshiper, right?
Right. Everything had to do. Well, I bet this came out also around the time. Was it him that had the talk about your mind as a stage, and that if you whatever you let come on the stage, the actors playing or whatever, you had to usher them off the stage if they weren't appropriate or whatever. I mean, he was so into control.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm glad the man is gone. I'm sorry to say that, but I am glad he's no longer involved in manipulating our thoughts. Yes.
I think so too. Were you aware of satanic panic, Landon, or anything like that, or any of these statements? Or
not satanic panic, but I remember a non-member uncle for Christmas gave us a Ouija board. Had no idea what a Ouija board was, but my mother made me take this. I just remember her making me take this brand new game, wasn't even unwrapped, and I had to go out and throw it in the garbage because we weren't going to have that in our house.
Yeah.
So
which again,
I never got to play with a Ouija board.
Which again, the early church and conjuring and magic circles and summoning spirits, no different from a Ouija board whatsoever. But I'm sure your mom had no idea that those were the origins of the church.
Yep, that's a lot of the spiritualists that ended up breaking off from the church and became the Salt Lake Tribune. So I guess that's why they're so afraid of spiritualists now.
That's true. A misalignment. That's exactly right. And automatic writing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was very prevalent in that day. So, all right, I think we have one more statement. Landon, you can read this one. Ooh, here we go. This is, I think it's James E. Faust, and he's also quoting Joseph F. Smith. So,
it is not good practice to become intrigued by Satan and his mysteries. No good can come from getting close to evil. Like playing with fire, it is too easy to get burned. The knowledge of sin tempteth to its commission. Joseph F. Smith, Gospel Doctrine. The only safe course is to keep well distanced from him and any of his wicked activities or nefarious practices. The mischief of devil worship, sorcery, casting spells, witchcraft, voodooism, black magic, and all other forms of demonism should be avoided like the plague. President James E. Faust.
And you know what's funny to me about that? About the only time I ever heard about the devil growing up was in church or from family members who said the devil appeared to me at night and I fought him. These faith promoting stories from Mormons. And then when you get older, the devil's in the temple, a main character. So really the only time that I ever really heard about Satan were from, faithful sources. Anyone else feel that way?
That is true. Yeah, that reminded me, I used to call it the adversary. I wouldn't say Satan so much, but it was the adversary. And I remember when I first started dating the guy that I'm dating now, he was not Mormon, and he wasn't really raised in any religion. But when I said, it's the adversary, he said, what is that? And I said, oh, haven't you ever heard of that? It's like the devil, Satan. And he goes, that's not true. There's no such thing. And that's like a fairy tale. And I was like, oh, no, it really is true. And, now I've come to realize, no, you know what? He's probably more right than I was. But, yeah, it was very steeped in our religious folklore and what we taught our kids. And it was part of our doctrine. Yeah. The Satan thing, the war in heaven. Part. Yeah.
The main character actually, I think, is Satan. Yeah, honestly, all of it falls apart without Satan. The entire plan, if Satan were just to say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to have it all falls apart, and Satan, as we talked about before, Landon, didn't even exist in the Old Testament, wasn't even real until people started to realize God is horrible. It wasn't really God. There's this other presence, right? It's all a construct.
Yeah. And to say to keep distance from Satan, how do you keep a distance from Satan? Everything is blamed on Satan. He is everywhere. If you
he lost my car keys.
Yeah, if you're on a date and you're tempted to fool around, that's the adversary. Right. If you want to eat cereal on Sunday morning on Fast Sunday, that's the adversary. He's everywhere. He's with you all the time, tempting you at all times, and we all give in to him. If you really look at it, we have a much closer relationship with the adversary or with Satan than we ever do with Christ, because we do so many things that are worldly and not godly. This whole idea that Satan is with us all the time and causing us to do all of these things is just ridiculous. And they talk about devil worship so much here. I honestly can't tell you one person I know that actually has ever worshiped the devil or says they worship the devil. I don't know a single person. Okay, maybe Charles Manson. I don't know him personally. There's a few guys out there that might do this, but the mainstream person in America or anywhere else is not practicing devil worship.
Right. Again, a satanic panic, though, because I think about the 80s. We had a bonfire at our Young Men, Young Women mutual to burn albums that had a satanic tone, right? Stairway to Heaven or Backmasking, right? You would hear a satanic message when played backwards. So that's all part of that in the 80s, this idea, the satanic panic. And that was real. It was part of what we did. We had to beware. And you're right, Landon, we focused way more on the adversary than we did on some of the other things because it was very real.
Yep.
Believe it or not, I know some of you that are younger. Yeah, you probably can't believe that. But yes, we burned records. Yes, we burned tapes. Yep, because our leaders said those are of the devil. So
yeah, I think they got to be more afraid of voodooism nowadays, where they've got so many people in Africa joining the church than we ever did in the past, because that's clearly has African origins and is much more popular in Africa than anywhere else. And whenever you have more of third world countries, you tend to have more of that magical thinking, just like we had with Joseph Smith back when he was from that same type of a situation.
Yeah, no, and that's true. And I think missionaries experience this. I have heard stories of missionaries that have gone to Africa, and some of the stories are dark and frightening like that. And, kids coming from Kaysville, Utah to go to, Africa, they might not be prepared to understand that. Even my own son on a mission years ago was in an area, it was in the United States, but he was asked to perform an exorcism several times. And, when I heard that, I was like, that is not why I sent my son on a mission, to experience stuff like that. I then talked to somebody who was more familiar with the culture of where he was, who said, no, it's not really like what you think it is. They just, it's not the occult. It's not that. It's something else that's more cultural. So I felt better. But, some of these missionaries are put in these situations where they're experiencing this stuff again for the first time through the church, right? It's so funny. Stay away from this, yet everything in the church is kind of focusing on it or leading to it. It just seems very strange. I don't know.
When I came back from my mission, my homecoming talk was actually on Satan and my testimony of Satan, because I saw Satan way more on my mission than I ever saw the hand of the Lord. I mean,
are you kidding? Did you really do that?
That's exactly. I had no faith promoting experiences. No one got baptized. Nobody wanted to hear anything, but I had a lot of situations where when someone was getting baptized, her husband wrapped a phone cord around her neck and tried to strangle her. And I was in one home where the guy, I thought, is he possessed? Does he have a demon? I now realize he was on drugs. I just, kid from Kaysville, I wasn't prepared. I didn't know what drugs look like, but now I know he was on drugs. But I was going, oh, that guy's like possessed. I just feel really dark, and he's just out there. You could see his eyes were all glassy and everything. And I don't know how most Mormon missionaries would know the difference between drugs and possessed, because you don't see that in Utah very much. So, but I had all kinds of experiences with Satan. I gained a greater testimony of Satan than I did of Jesus on my mission, because Satan showed up everywhere.
Well, that explains why you're a post-Mormon podcaster.
That's right.
If you read stories from missions from the early church and even just happenings of the early church, Satan was very close. He was very real. There were all kinds of scenarios. He's throwing people around the room. We know he's here. So yeah, you're right. A lot closer than people really want to admit, I think. All right, let's move forward. Very interesting. Okay. And again, I have to bring this up. Like you said, we've all heard the story of how the golden plates were finally acquired, right? Moroni tells him the plates are there. He goes back year after year, not ready. And then if I remember from primary, it's just like he goes and it's time and he brings them home. But that is not what happened. And I'm telling you, we never learn this in primary. We never have a coloring page of what it looks like when Joseph Smith really brought the plates home, because look at this story. And this is right out of church history. It says, in 1827, the attempt to retrieve the plates used all of the same elements of treasure digging as in the first two, including a reliance on the color black and retrieving the plates at the most powerful time in magic, 2 a.m. in the autumnal equinox. We don't know that. Nobody knows that. They just think, they would never imagine dressed all in black, going at 2 a.m, because that's the time where the spirit is most powerful. This is not what we were raised with. And he goes on to say, this is from his mother's memoir. He borrowed Joseph Knight's black horse and a carriage. He acquired black clothes, and there exists a receipt for the purchase of lamp black paint from the Palmyra store 4 days prior. So he has to make everything black, right? In fact, I even read something that he braided the horse's mane with a certain black and black ribbons. Several friends and neighbors corroborated the requirement for total blackness during this critical visit to the hill, and his mother mentioned it in the biographical sketches. Joseph's sister stated that he was to appear at 2 o'clock, the powerful hour of Saturday morning, over which his ruling planet of Jupiter presided, right? This is not what we're learning in primary. I'm telling you. Oliver Cowdery first published a history of Smith and used the terms necromancy and enchantment to describe this event. And this is from Folk Magic Treasure Digging in Mormon Stories. So this is a version we've never heard. We've never heard this. What do you think, Lila?
No.
I mean, is this how you pictured it? Moon, 2 a.m., black horse, black buggy, everybody wearing black, everything painted black to go get the plates. This doesn't sound right.
No, this is not at all what we were taught. It was, they leave all this stuff out when they tell the kids what happened or tell us. And, you know, I mean, the thought of all of this, you know, going to such pains to make sure everything was black and to do it on the right date, you know, and the most magical date. It's so interesting how, and I'm going to use this term, whitewashed the history has been.
Ironically.
And that anything that has to do with the occult, they have taken it out and thrown it to the side and hidden it, because they're trying to back away from all of the questionable beginnings of the church. It is very questionable. It is very wrapped in the occult. All the things that he would do, you know, when they go on the treasure digs, he would kill a dog and sprinkle the blood around in a circle, and they have to chant and say the same thing. And if they didn't find the treasure, it's because somebody didn't do the chant right, or somebody didn't, whatever, you know, some little thing. This is all magic. It's all magic. It's pretty.
And we're worried about Halloween when this is what was happening. Now, I mean, don't you find that ironic, Landon?
It's extremely ironic.
Yeah, the church started. I mean, the very first account, really, that Joseph Smith tells about, not the first vision, because he doesn't tell about that till much later, but is the visit of an angel, which he identified as Nephi once and Moroni the rest of the time. But Moroni, the angel Moroni, he shows up, but he shows up on a night when Joseph Smith is looking for him, for a treasure angel to show up. And so he's looking for a treasure angel. It's supposed to happen on the fall equinox, when Jupiter is in retrograde, again, similar to the night he went and picked up the plates. When Moroni first showed up, he wasn't looking for an angel of God. He was looking for a treasure angel. And he had lamens, which had all kinds of magical symbols out of the magus. He had a Jupiter talisman that he used. He had his seer stone, or his rock, and his hat that he then went on to translate the Book of Mormon. And a seer stone looking in a hat is the very same thing he would do when he was treasure digging. He'd look in his hat with a seer stone and tell the diggers, a little to the left, a little to the right. Oh, an angel. Oh, you just about had it. And then the treasure angel came and grabbed it and took it away. So the whole beginning of the church was not a 14-year-old boy seeing God. It was, what was he, 16, 17? I'm not sure what year it was that Moroni came, but it started with a boy looking for a treasure angel to show up in the middle of the night as part of his dark arts of treasure digging. And that story turned into the story we now have today of gold plates and angels and the first vision and all of that. But that is not the original story by any means.
No, those are the origins, and more people are becoming aware, and it's just so ironic. All right, let's forge ahead. So let's see. Okay, so I did pose this question, over on More Faithful sites. And of course, I think we know most Mormons do celebrate Halloween, although like you said, there's different levels to it. So let's take turns. These are different little kind of representational quotes. So the first one says, yep, we can celebrate it. In fact, most Latter-day Saint congregations celebrate it together with a kid-focused event, like Lila was describing. As for the pagan roots, we're not too worried. Christmas and Easter also have deep pagan roots, and we celebrate those alongside with Christians. We don't focus on that fact for any of the 3 holidays. So that pretty much explains. I think that's how most of them feel. Lila, what does the next one say?
Well, who said that?
Huh?
Was that out of the church magazine of some sort?
No. These are comments from faithful members when asked the question, do you celebrate Halloween? Should Mormons celebrate Halloween? Are you worried it's too pagan? These are the answers of just random sampling of faithful members.
Okay, if giving M&Ms to my 4-year-old neighbor because he dressed up as the firefighter dog from Paw Patrol is a work of evil and darkness, then there is no hope for humanity. That's cute.
Yeah, that person has a really good attitude. That's exactly right. Oh, Paw Patrol. I love it. Landon, what does the next one say?
Yes, we are allowed to celebrate Halloween. Culturally, most Christians celebrate Halloween, but I've met several Christians who say it's satanic and shouldn't be celebrated. There are even some members of our church who chose not to celebrate Halloween too. To be honest, I think members of our church just see it as a holiday to have a little bit of fun and don't put any more thought into it than that.
Yep, and I agree. It's not sensationalized, although, as we said, there are some that choose not to, but for the most part, they do. Okay, let's see. Those that condemn Halloween as a satanic holiday suck the joy out of life. Relax. It's just a fun night for the kids. So again, great attitudes here. I think this is it. This is good. And the last one, Lila?
Use of the term Mormon as a reference to Latter-day Saints betrays your ignorance or bigotry. As for trick-or-treating, it is whatever the parents want. Do you expect the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to direct every detail of every cultural festival? If that's the kind of cult you are seeking, keep searching. They are out there.
Boy, that person was kind of grumpy.
Yeah, I'm trying to untangle that first sentence.
Well, it's because I said, can Mormons celebrate, and they're like, we are not Mormons. We are the Church of the...
For you. How dare you use that term, Rebecca?
How dare I use it? I know, I'm so sorry. I just can't break the habit, and I feel like it's going to be okay again soon. So anyway, so most members have a good attitude, positive attitude about Halloween. And that's kind of what we expected to find. So, all right, let's look at the next slide.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of the early Christians. If you remember, they used to attend the celebrations or the holidays in the cultures they were in. So the Christians in Rome would go to Roman holidays. And during that time, there'd be big feasts. They'd kill cows and then they'd offer them to the gods, and then they'd give out the meat for free. And this was one of the big arguments among the early saints. Can we eat meat that has been sacrificed to a pagan god? Or they'd sell it, and could you buy the meat that was sacrificed to the pagan gods? And it was a big fight. And a lot of people said, oh, they're not real gods, so who cares? It's a piece of meat. We're buying the meat. We get to eat it, or we celebrate with everyone else. What's the big deal? And you had the other group that was going, oh, no, you can't take meat sacrificed to a pagan god. And that's just our version today. I think most Mormons are like the top 4 people. They celebrate, they have fun, but there are those that have to stand back and look at every detail and turn every rock and try to find a problem with it.
As for me and my house, that's right. And those poor
We will
kids.
celebrate Halloween.
Although I have to say, fun size candy bars, oh my gosh, it's going to be my downfall because they're fun size. If I didn't trick or treat, it wouldn't be a problem. And your kids bring it home and it's always around the house. And you're like, I'll just have a few of these. And you realize 4 fun size little pieces are like a candy bar and a half. It's too much. So the next thing I have are just some pictures that I found online of celebrations in cultural halls. You can tell they are because of the basketball hoop, but some wards have these great fun parties. Look, there's a Harry Potter one and some other ones. So again, it's kind of a roulette, some celebrate, some don't.
Yeah. You hope you go to the one that does.
Yeah, you do hope. But the roulette,
it always sucked when the other ward had this great party and you were like, there, painting.
And you got the trunk or treat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was really surprised in a ward that I was in once where I got a little note on my door that said, Relief Society Witches Brew. Sisters come dressed in a witch costume during the day, and we're going to have a sisters brew. And I thought that is shocking that would be allowed, that brew and witches. I was all on board, but I was really, really surprised that they were able to do that and have a little luncheon dressed up. Yeah. So I don't know, something slipped past the bishop, I feel, on that one. But, and I think it also kind of boils down to Halloween, cute Halloween versus Halloween, right? There's a difference. Some people are only comfortable with, like the picture on the left, the very cutesy Halloween. And then other people either like to celebrate the very dark side, or they shy away from that very darker celebration of Halloween. So, and I don't know, I've noticed that overall, it seems like the decorations you can buy now, they are scarier. People are really embracing that very dark, scary side of Halloween. But I think it does, the lighter side versus focusing on the dark side, there's a difference in how you celebrate, I think.
For sure.
Yeah, I think so. All right. So, and then back to the article, they were kind of talking about Halloween of the past. And I'm glad that we're all kind of a similar age here, because I do remember Halloween being celebrated actually like in church, in primary. I'm old enough to remember this. So back to the article, it says, while no official church statement or counsel from church leader addresses the topic of Halloween, many articles in church magazines do highlight this topic. After carefully looking over past church publications from the Ensign to the Friend, I, the reporter in this article, or the writer, found quite a few articles focusing on Halloween. And I can attest to that. As a kid, I remember this. But once again, no clear church stance became apparent. The Friend and the New Era shared many short stories of children and teens trick-or-treating, celebrating the holiday, giving friendly treats and service, or even setting up an elaborate haunted house for their friends to tour. While these articles highlighted people, including in some of the more frivolous traditions of Halloween, all showed how these fun activities led children and families closer to the church, closer to each other, and closer to the Savior. Like what I described with those big Halloween extravaganzas that I put on, or what you described, Lila, with those big parties. So, and here's a picture of the Children's Friend, I think 1964, so back a year before I was born, and it's clearly got a Halloween scene right on the front of the church magazine. And if you go to the next slide, I was remembering from there were a couple songs that were actually in the primary book, right? That we sang. Do you remember these songs at all, Lila? When you're all
I do. I remember there's no such thing as a witch.
Yep. There's no such thing as a witch. And then the one that goes HALLOWEN spells Halloween. Ooh, I remember this, right?
I don't know that
really
one.
Fun. Yeah. Of course, this is the same hymn book or the primary book that has the song Queer Pussies in it. So, there were some strange. It's a different day, right? Different meaning. But again, look in the Children's Friend. Yeah, Halloween puzzles and stories and all of that kind of stuff. So, and this was in church. We were celebrating this in church. So, definitely different era, more fun with the kids. So I don't know, Landon, you're younger than we are, so you probably don't remember these kinds of songs being sung in primary.
Yeah, I don't remember Halloween songs in primary at all. So.
Yeah, well, they certainly don't do it now. That's for sure. Not at all.
I miss those days. Those were fun old days back in. Yeah. I really do, with the road shows and all the. It was so much fun. Many fun things going on.
Yep, I think so too. And again, building community, bringing you closer to each other and closer to Christ. I mean, I think that was really true. So anyway, now we've digressed to the part where we're going in my day, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's something I think is interesting. So I called this slide "Hijacking the Neighborhood When Halloween is on Sunday in Utah," or just being a weirdo outside of Utah. Now, I've experienced both, and you guys can probably speak to this. So when Halloween is on Sunday in Utah, it basically shuts down Halloween for neighborhood kids who are not LDS. Because what you typically do is we'll go to the church on Saturday night and have a trunk or treat. And then on Sunday, real Halloween, usually you're not offering candy, your lights are off, the neighborhood is shut down. So even if you're not LDS in Utah, you kind of have to go along with doing Halloween on the Saturday night because it's really not going to happen on Sunday. And then if you're outside of Utah, so I experienced that as a mother in Utah. If you're outside of Utah and Halloween is on a Sunday night, basically your parents drive you around to other people in the ward and you're just a weirdo. You're so embarrassed to be getting out of the car on a Saturday night when everyone knows Halloween is the next night and people are looking at you going, look at that kid. They think Halloween is tonight. It's just awkward and not fun. And then again, on the Sunday night, at least in my family, we turned the lights out. We did not offer candy on regular Halloween. So it kind of set you apart. Did you guys have any memories from Halloween being on Sunday and being LDS?
I don't know why I'm drawing a blank.
You're drawing a blank. It did happen. I mean, when my kids were growing up, I think it happened at least twice where Halloween was on Sunday. And the ward just said, we're going to have the trunk or treat. And then, of course, you do not trick or treat on Sunday. So that was kind of how it was in my
I grew up in Utah and there was no such thing as Halloween on Sunday.
Yeah,
it was always, it was on Saturday if it was fell on a Sunday.
Just changed the date. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I lived in other states as a kid.
Did you trick or treat on Sunday? I mean, your father was a general authority, so I'm curious about that.
But my father was a convert.
That's
in a lot of ways, he hung on to some of his old ways before he was converted. And that may have been one where he was like, it's fine, go out and trick or treat. He was kind of like that about certain things. So, I just don't remember what I did.
Well, then it probably wasn't a big issue. And again, I think the message here is it's individual families and how they treat it. And it's also individual wards and individual neighborhoods. And it's all just, it's roulette. People are going to have different roulette as my bats hit me in the face. I'm feeling like maybe our viewers are going to be hypnotized.
Of course, it's not just Halloween in Utah. Any holiday falls on Sunday, it gets changed to Saturday with the exception of Christmas. And then you get out of church early. So that's the only benefit to Christmas falling on Sunday.
Finally, they've shortened Christmas officially to the 1 hour. But I remember having, my kids in Christmas and you have to get up at 3:00 in the morning and make sure you're ready because church is at 9. Do you open presents ahead of time? Do you open after? Again, hijacking the whole day. I mean, ironically, because it's about Christ's birth, but still, it's very interesting to, just navigate this holiday, any holiday as an LDS person. So, all right. Okay. So I thought this was a cute meme I found. It said, so I grew up doing this, and the pictures of people going to the porch, trick-or-treating, and not doing this. And what's that bottom picture of, Landon?
That's the trunk or treat. Yeah.
That's the trunk or treat. That's right. Some people love it. Some people don't love it. I mean, it is what it is. It's a way to kind of bond together, especially outside of Utah, if you want everybody to come together for that kind of celebration at the church. And typically they'll invite the entire neighborhood, so it can be a good thing, but I don't know. People do it different ways.
Yeah. I think the church hijacks a lot of things. It's not just holidays.
Yeah.
They hijack, for instance, programs like AA. Like they have their own version of it. Yeah. It's like they have to put their spin on everything because they're, the true righteous way of doing everything. And that is not what Halloween is about. You don't go to a parking lot and pull your trunk up that is wrong. That is not how it's done. I wouldn't even let my kids go to those. I'm like, that is not Halloween.
You said no to the trunk or treat. There you go.
Yeah, we just said, we're not doing that. That's stupid. So I just never liked that. I think we should be like everyone else and enjoy it like we're supposed to.
Yeah.
And
with the neighborhood.
With the fear mongering about it.
And it does make you kind of exclusive.
Yeah. And I mean, I could see it if you did it in addition to trick or treating.
Double.
It's more like a little candy party. Another way to get more candy and dress up.
Right.
You know, those are fun. But there was a time, and I think it's during the Satanic Panic time, there was a fear of razor blades that were hidden in candy.
In the apple. Yep.
In the apple. Or like they would put drugs inside, or you thought inside like the caramel, stick it in there or whatever. So you'd have to come home and your mom would cut everything up.
Yep.
And dissect it to make sure there wasn't anything bad in there before you could eat it. And it was all like, thanks, that's not even appealing anymore because it's just been sliced and diced. And then
isn't that funny? That is what our parents did. Yeah, you had to show them your candy and they had to check every single piece because that was the panic. You know, there were razor blades and apples and drugs in the candy. And I don't know, like Landon, you are younger than we are. So maybe you didn't experience that. But
no, I remember that. That's the good old days when you had to worry about razor blades in your candy. I think I think trunk or treat has led to kids being fat today. I mean, think about it. You just went down and it was so efficient. You could get 1,000 pieces of candy and just by running around the parking lot. When we went trick or treating, we'd go miles out.
That's right.
You'd go and you're like, I'm not coming back till 2 a.m. And you always made it back about 9:30. But you took a pillowcase and you were trying to see how many houses you could hit and how far you could go. It was like running a marathon to get your candy.
Those were good times.
Yeah, the good old days. That's right. All right. I think we're getting toward the end here. My favorite part's coming up. Oh, this. Okay. So Harry Potter. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but when my kids were little and we would try to have a Harry Potter party, there was always a kid that couldn't come because it was Harry Potter, because it was magical. There was always a mom that would call and say, oh, we'd love to come to the birthday, but we don't do Harry Potter. We don't allow our kids to have anything to do with Harry Potter because he has divining rods and magic spectacles and he has breastplates and of course I'm adding that, but you see what I'm saying. I mean, it's absolutely absurd, as we talked about before. So of course I have this picture of what we've been talking about the whole time, all these magical implements that were used in the founding of the church. People don't know. So I always thought that was really funny that they were keeping their kids from the Harry Potter party because they were afraid of the occult and magic, and that's just so silly.
Irony.
It is irony. Hermione irony. That's right. Landon, did you ever get invited to a Harry Potter party? Did you ever have a Harry Potter party?
Never went to a Harry Potter party.
It's hard to say Harry Potter party, but
evidently. I think I was an adult by the time Harry Potter.
Yeah, I was like in the 90s, but your kids would have. Yeah, I didn't mean you personally, like dressing up like Hagrid and going to a Harry. I meant like your kids.
Yeah, that a little past my time. In fact, when I grew up, it was Friday the 13th and Children of the Corn and all of those type of movies at Halloween time. Harry Potter, that's sissy stuff,
that's lightweight.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's our stuff.
That's your stuff. There you go. The first time I ever saw the Chainsaw Massacre, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, was on a church temple trip, where we did baptisms for the dead, and the leaders that were in our hotel said, we're going to go out. You kids all go in this room, and then we'll come back later and take you out for ice cream. And we all sat there in one hotel room, and we're flipping through the channels, and we're like, what's this? And so we went to the temple in the afternoon and literally watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre later in the evening.
Well, it's fitting.
Yeah.
You did, that's
right. It's true. It does have some of the similar elements. I never thought about that, but it was a revelatory trip because I learned a lot about all kinds of different things. So,
we did have a really cool youth activity on Halloween where they took us up to 25th Street in Ogden, which, if any of you are familiar with the Ogden area, 25th Street is where all the brothels were. and the heyday of the train. All the speakeasies were there.
Whose idea was that?
It was the leaders, yeah, and it was really interesting because they took us there, and now 25th Street's kind of fancied up. They've restored it, but back then it was completely run down. It's where all the homeless people hung out. They still hang out there now, but it was definitely a homeless area, and they had all these really run down motels where the old brothels used to be. And one of the young men's leader actually owned one of these buildings. And so he took us in there and he said, "Oh yeah, I own this building." He took us up and so he goes up and we're all going up, and all of a sudden we start hearing this banging and this clanging, and we're like, "Oh, is there a homeless guy in here? Did someone break in?" He said, "Oh, God, this happens all the time. I got to go get." So he goes away, and all of a sudden this argument starts going, and you hear the guy yelling, and you're going, "Ha ha, they're just trying to scare us." But then the guy started cussing. He's going, "Get the hell out of here!" And we're going, "This can't be a church activity. They're swearing." So they really saw, and then they you heard gunshots and stuff.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh, what? No, it was hardcore. It was and it turned out they were just playing us, but it was fun. That was a good youth activity.
Back in the day when you could do stuff like that.
Yeah, the guy threw a garbage can down the stairs. We were standing in the stairwell, and the garbage can came rolling down.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
they were having fun with it.
I'm just trying to picture the planning meeting. So we're going to get the kids to a brothel. Then we're going to get a gun. Yeah. Well, that sounds great, says the bishop. Yeah. Sure, it was the 80s. It was a different day. That's for sure.
You didn't need a priesthood purpose back then.
Oh,
the
no.
Was scare the kids,
purpose.
Yeah,
taking the kids to a brothel. Absolutely not. Not one bit. So, oh my gosh. Oh, you know what? That reminds me, I'll tell this before we go to our next, because I think we're going to talk about costumes from here on out as we close. But I had a very scary, potentially extremely scary Halloween experience when I was about 15. I think I might have told this before, but my friends and I were out. We weren't necessarily trick-or-treating, but we were kind of walking around, because we're a little old, 14, 15. And we're like, "Hey, let's go to our young women leader's house." It was about half a mile away. And we talked about it for a minute, and then we're like, no, let's go the other direction. We just decided for some reason to go the other direction. Well, it turned out that our young women's leader at that exact moment, there was a home invasion. She had answered the door to trick-or-treaters, and it wasn't trick-or-treaters. It was a guy, who had tied her up, and her adult son who was living with her, and was asking her for guns and for drugs, and was looking at the pictures of her daughters on the mantle and saying, "Where do they live? Are they coming home?" And she was finally able to get herself free, and she didn't go to a neighbor's house to call the police. She ran all the way to the bishop's house, which was farther away, to finally call the police and everything. But I always think about that because, we were not too far away, and we were talking about, let's go over to Sister So-and-so's house. And sometimes I think about that would have been a life-changing, terrifying experience. It was for her anyway, had we gone over there. So I don't know, maybe it was the Holy Ghost that told us not to go, but we didn't. But that was probably one of my narrow misses on Halloween. Halloween was different back in the day. The kids were roaming around. There was a lot going on. So.
Back when we worshiped Satan, that was the good old
days.
Back
during the Satanic Panic. That's right. Okay. So let's talk about LDS themed Halloween costumes. Yes, this is a thing. And I don't know, Lila, if you can remember being a faithful member and coming up with costumes that are faithful themed. I don't believe that I ever did, even though I was at BYU for a really long time. But these are real. These are off the internet. So we have some missionaries dressed up as Book of Mormons. That's a great idea. A little pair there, the Bible and the Book of Mormon. I think that's cute. We have, why don't you describe this one, Landon? What's this?
That's Moroni with one long horn. I don't know where he got that horn from.
Got a very long horn.
Took that off a train or something.
Yep. And he's painted gold, which I'm worried about because, when you use that kind of body paint, that can cause problems sometimes if you don't use the right kind. That can be really poisonous. So,
yeah, he probably got sick from that.
Yep. So here's some other ones. You've got a Book of Mormon characters, which doesn't take much to dress up like a Book of Mormon character. You kind of put on a bathrobe or just, of course, nobody knows what Book of Mormon characters really, really dress like, right? Because they're fictional. But and then on the right, you've got a whole family dressed up like CTR. They've got swords of right and might and shields for CTR, which is cute. I don't know, Lila, did you ever have any neighbors or friends that dressed up in these Halloween costumes that had an LDS theme at any of your parties?
No,
she's like, no.
We used Halloween as an excuse to dress slutty.
That is true. Lingerie with cat ears. That's really all it takes, or a witch hat. You're right.
That's what I always miss.
One day a year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Always missed that in Utah was the slutty Halloween costumes. You didn't get those.
For the slutty.
Yes, I was hoping for those.
And instead you get CTR. That's what you get right there. To remind you to keep your thoughts back where they belong. So, all right. I actually found a lot of these. Not sure what's going here on the left. It's a missionary holding a Book of Mormon with blood stains and like a bloody cross on his face. So I don't know.
That's an anti-Mormon. That's an ex-Mormon.
That possibly is probably a post-Mormon. Now, I do remember this next picture is a polygamy, right? I do remember being invited in college to be part of a group Halloween costume where it was going to be one guy and like 15 girls that didn't have a date to the ward party. And I said, no, thank you. I have a date. But I remember they went and they all dressed up in pioneer clothes with one guy and they were, Brigham and 15 wives. So that's an easy costume. Yeah, easy costume. Just put on a pioneer dress and find a guy. And right there, you're a polygamous family.
Pretend you're pregnant or
pretend you're pregnant or have a baby. Yep. And that's what they're doing. Yep, they all look pregnant. Yep. So
I have a feeling it was that guy's idea to do that costume.
Yeah, he kind of looks like the type. Yeah, hey gals, let's do this. But in Utah, that flies because everybody knows what you are right away, right? Yeah. You're pretty much any of the early church leaders. So yeah, these are creative.
I love how they're holding each other's bellies.
Exactly. So here you have a little kid. He's dressed up as Helaman. They had instructions on how to make this Helaman costume. And then you have, I don't know how this picture got in here because this is not Halloween. This is Captain Moroni from Storming the Capitol, isn't it? So, oh gosh, yeah, he got in there. And again, in the news, they kept calling him a gladiator. But of course, all of us knew he was dressed up like Captain Moroni.
Captain Moroni. The title of Liberty gave it away.
Yeah, the title of Liberty. I'm guessing he could use that for Halloween too, and maybe did before, and that's why he had the costume to wear on that day. But yeah, that's unfortunate. That picture should not be there. So, all right. Oh, okay, here we go. Missionaries. That's a good costume. Even if you're a missionary, you can just kind of dress as yourself. They've got the bike helmet, the backpack, the book, the name tag. And then I thought this was very creative. On the other side, you have zombie missionaries who have died. They've got tire tracks on their shirts. Their faces are like zombies and they have their bike helmets still on. So
evidently, when you turn into a zombie as a missionary, you have to move your name tag to the other side.
Yes. You can always tell when someone's not really a missionary. They don't know where the name tag actually goes. But again, creative, right? If you're looking for more of a matching costume or a couple's kind of costume. So yeah. And these are all real costumes I found online. You can take it way back to the beginning. You can go as Adam and Eve. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good one.
Adam and Eve.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Yep.
That's a pretty easy costume to do. Sort of something right out of the Temple film, perhaps. Looks good right there. And then I thought this was really interesting on the right. This is someone selling a costume. It's a costume. If you recognize that painting of Moroni, right? Or Nephi. Is it Nephi or Moroni sitting at the table?
It's Mormon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Mormon. That's right. Yeah. And you can see all the pieces that are from the painting. And he says in here, Mormon costume only. That's the $30. The props, which look at that costume. It's a t-shirt and a skirt. Props seen in the picture are not included unless there's a specific prop in the picture that you can see, and we can negotiate additional pricing. So
nobody's gonna know who that is walking around in that outfit.
And I feel like you have to sit at the table. In order to make it work. So maybe you go to the ward party and you just set yourself up kind of in the corner.
Yeah.
Everyone goes
sit at the table. The whole time with your arm on the,
If you're immobile, you broke your leg, this might be a good costume idea. Yeah.
But I bet $30 for what he's wearing and then negotiate on all the props around it. So
wait, is he selling his tokens for money?
I feel like he might be. I don't know. So, this is like a costume Dr. John Lenwell want. Where? Maybe we should tell him about it. So, All right. Then we have suffragette. Oops. If you go back, there you go. Suffragette, early Utah pioneer woman, getting the vote, right? Because we know that Utah women were the first ones to get the vote. And then this is a great post. Somebody said, look what my parents wore to the ward Halloween party. And there it is. The wife is Moroni and the husband is the Book of Mormon.
I have to point out this doesn't meet church criteria because the woman is cross-dressing as a man.
But the man in question is wearing a dress. So Moroni wears a dress. So yeah.
Yeah. Either way, it's cross-dressing.
Either way. But again, very creative. You're using, your religion and coming up with costumes. So then, here's another polygamous group. Same thing there. You got the guy and they're all there. And then I thought this was a really good one. This is hilarious. The guy is wearing a name tag that says, rest in peace, home teaching, 1963 to 2018. And the woman is wearing rest in peace, 3-hour block, 1980 to 2018. So I think that's very clever. Two of the things that the church did away with, they're dead, they're gone, they're over. So that's almost more like a commentary, isn't it? On what was happening.
I just figured it out. They are the tombs. They're the stone. They're the tombstone.
That's right. They're the tombstone. So then I thought, let's go back, Landon, before we give it all away. There we go. Okay. So then I thought, okay, let's make up our own. Let's make up our more current costumes of things that have happened recently. So this one I call the crush the water bottle costume. We all remember that, right? From conference, crushing the water bottle. So here's a guy dressed in a water bottle. And I'm guessing when he goes up to the porch, he could then just like crunch down. I'm thinking maybe that's how it would work. Don't you think?
Would the church really use a water bottle called Thirsty Beaches?
I'm not exactly sure, but this is an actual costume that you can purchase or make on your own. So, I'm just trying to think of themes from recent conferences, and things that we've been told. I'm thinking this might be
job,
so, do you wear this, Lila? Did you wear a water bottle costume?
Yeah, but I maybe.
He's like, yeah.
Sure.
He crushed it. That's for sure.
Sure, but no. Okay. What else did we come up with? Again, these are kind of all based on conference. Ooh, what's this one called, Landon?
This is President Nelson's flaming spiral of death airplane costume. Atheists need not apply.
Yes, you can't wear it if you're an atheist. That's right. You only feel peace in it if you are, somebody that's a member of the church. But you're right. You can reenact the whole thing with the airplane and spiraling down and having comfort and peace during. So I think that's great. I think this would be a good one.
Yeah, there needs to be a woman in it that's crying.
Yeah, a woman that's crying. Yep. Really and you can also go as far as Brad Wilcox's little scenario where he said when the plane goes down, the atheists stomp on everybody to get out. Studies have shown. So you can use the plane dual purpose. Ooh, what about this one, Lila? Do you like this idea? What is this one?
Oh, one guy can be the rock and the other one the hat.
Yep. That's rock and the hat couples
costume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. I think that's a good one. Go up to the porch and see some things or
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of things in church history that, would make a good costume. So I like that.
Good job. You're very creative. I'm
thinking outside the box here. Now these are just simply Think Celestial t-shirts. You can get them and even a tank top right there. And it's funny because when I made these slides, I was going to say, of course, you can't wear this one, the tank top. Can't say that now, can I? Because just today, garment tank tops.
Sorry. Those armholes are too big for the tank top.
It's garment. A little too much of an open armhole. You're right. But again, Think Celestial, there's a lot of things that you can do with that. You could make a lot of different costumes.
Are those for real for sale?
Those are for real for sale. Yeah, these are real. And this one I love. What does this one say, Landon?
Think Celestial with Celestial crossed out. Then it just says think is a good start.
I love that.
Yeah, I feel like this guy, if he shows up to the ward party, he's really edgy and he's just trying to make a statement and they probably ask him to leave maybe. But yeah, this is a real t-shirt too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is a real t-shirt that I found. So
I like that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Oh, I love this one. This is the versatile stay in the boat or dinghy costume because there's a lot of metaphors about staying in the boat, stay in the dinghy, keep rowing. So in this costume, you're literally in the boat. You are in it. That's so great. This would be a powerful one, a powerful visual message to take to your ward party.
Yeah. It's also like a good way to keep people at arm's length. And nobody could get too close to you with that thing swinging around.
That's right, because you got the boat all around you. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
There are an awful lot of metaphors having to do with staying boats and dinghies and cruise ships and all kinds of things like that. I don't know why that is. It's strange. All right, what else did we have? Oh, I like this one. What's this one say, Landon?
The little factory tamper-proof costume.
Nice. Dress like a little factory. Do not tamper. I love that. I think you're going to get a lot of candy if you go up to the porch. Wearing a little factory. Yep. That's a real picture I found online. So
I don't think anyone would want to take the candy from anyone who
That's true. That's true. I'll just put it in here. Yeah, that's right. All right. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is kind of a complex one. Now, at the last general conference, Brad Wilcox, who is a member of the Young Men's General Board, said you can't be a lifeguard if you dress like the other swimmers on the beach. And so to me, he's saying you need to dress like a lifeguard. And so he is giving the stamp of approval for everybody to dress like Baywatch. Remember Baywatch, Lila?
Oh, I remember Baywatch.
Every guy, knows Baywatch.
Baywatch. Yeah. So according to Brad Wilcox, this is how we could dress for Halloween or for the ward party. We can dress like a lifeguard, not like the other swimmers on the beach, but like a lifeguard. And in case you can't picture it, if you go to our next slide, there's Brad. He's dressed like a lifeguard. There it is. I know. Take it off the screen. That's probably too difficult of a visual for you. Take it off quickly. So that's it.
His face needs a little more sun to match the body.
Yeah, I know, right?
He's inside looking in his hat a lot. Remember, he's the one that has my hat's like a cell phone, or my cell phone's like a rock in the hat. He's got that thing going on. So. All right. And then if you just really want to irritate people around you, Lila, what is this costume?
Say it out loud, proclamation on the family costume.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get any candy if you go around from house to house just wearing that.
No,
but I would not put it past people, because they do have yard flags that have the proclamation of the family on it.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. Have you seen those? Yeah. Not only here in Utah did they tear down pride flags from everywhere, but they also fly a banner or a flag that has the proclamation of the family on it during the month of June. Yeah.
I did not know this. It's better I just don't know these things.
I know it. Now you come on the podcast and you find out. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
Thanks a lot. No, it's okay.
All right. But here's the number one costume. This is the costume that everybody's going to be wearing. The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives costume. You would look amazing like this, Lila. All you need is a blue coat or a sweatsuit that you can dance in. In this case, she's holding a swig cup and a bag of Fruity Pebbles. If you saw that episode, you know that there was a romantic interlude with some Fruity Pebbles. And really, if you can't afford the coat or you can't find a sweatsuit, all you really have to do is walk around with a big swig drink, 44 ounce, and a cookie. And that's your costume.
Then everyone will know. There's
but this is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm hearing out there, that this is going to be the costume of the season, the Secret Lives costume. So watch
easy peasy, grab some Fruity Pebbles and a swig cup.
And a blue coat. In fact, Landon, I think you should try it. I think you look great as a Secret Lives for Mormon wife.
Oh, I want to try the Fruity Pebble thing. Yeah.
Oh dear. Okay. Well, we're not going to go there. Move off the slide. I know we learned so much. So, all right. And now we're at the end. And I asked AI, I said, make 2 witches and a warlock. It kind of looks like us, I think, a little bit, right? Landon, that's you in the middle looking all scary. And there we are. So so that's final cute. Halloween thoughts. I mean, I thought it was an interesting episode just because of the juxtaposition with early church history and people being concerned about Halloween, where it's just so ironic to me. And I think we did a good job of explaining it. What do you think, Lila?
Yeah, I think we nailed it.
I do too.
Too. One thing about Mormons, we're not JWs. We can celebrate Halloween, and it can be fun if you just get the Sister Karens out of the ward. You can have a lot of good time. I had a lot of good times with Halloween in the church, and growing up in Utah, I knew all my neighbors. So trick-or-treating was, you never worried. It wasn't a scary thing. You could go out. And like I say, we'd go for miles and you never worried because, you knew your neighbors from either the ward or the stake. And so it was a good time.
Yep. Good memories, I think. That's how I feel. Do you feel that way, Lila?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had great time with Halloween. Always.
Yep.
Yeah. We would stay out too late and people would be like, it's 10:30. We're all out of candy. What are you doing? I'd be like, 10:30. We're going to be out till midnight. We're going to be out
the
till
night is young.
Yeah. Never ending party. It was fun.
It's a never ending party. That's right. Well, I'm curious what people have been talking about in the chat, because I'm guessing a lot of people have memories like we do and experiences, or maybe you were raised in a family where you weren't able to celebrate Halloween, and maybe that made you even more motivated to celebrate Halloween with your own kids. I've seen that too. People said we were never allowed, and so now I go all out. So there's all kinds of different ways to do Mormon Halloween, and that's what we were just trying to cover here today. So please comment and let us know what you think of Mormon Halloween and how you celebrated it when you were growing up and what you did with your kids. It's a fun season, and I think it's a fun topic. Please like and subscribe to Mormonish Podcast, and if you'd like to be made aware of when new episodes come out, you can hit that notification bell. If you'd like to donate to Mormonish Podcast, we have links in the show notes to Donor Box. We are a 501(c)(3), and we absolutely appreciate every single one of you that does make a donation. We just can't tell you how much that means to us, and we love you all. So also we have our links to Mormonish merch. We don't have any Halloween merch, do we, Landon? We should have thought that through, but we do have some fun. You could put cider, right, or Halloween hot cocoa in a Mormonish.
Or you can just take a pumpkin and carve Mormonish into it.
You know what? We should try that. That's a really good idea. Stay tuned. We might have to try that. So, and we'd really like to thank Lila, who at the very last minute, I texted her. I said, "Hey, do you have a Halloween costume?" She's like, "I'm on it. Give me the link. I'm there." So we love it. We love podcasting with Lila. You always bring so much to it. So thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Yep. And you look super cute as a cat. So I'm glad everybody got to see you. So
all
right. Well, we will say happy Halloween and goodbye for now from Mormonish. We will see y'all next time. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mormonish. We really appreciate our listeners and would love to hear from you if you have a story you'd like to share. You can email us at mormonishpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on our website, mormonishpodcast.org. And don't forget to look for us on YouTube and like and subscribe. Keep joyful, everybody.